So we conclude chapter 6. In conclusion, the Alter Rebbe, quoting from the beginning of Shar Yichud Ve'Amunah, quoting from the beginning of the second part, the verse in Deuteronomy that says, that you should know today. What should you know? What is there to know? What ultimately are we meant to know? Not just to know, but to bring it into your heart, right? To bring it into your heart. And the Torah is warning us very carefully that there is no God, no other God in the heavens and above and below. Ein oid. There's nothing else but Him. So, till the Alter Rebbe came to give us a deeper explanation, most understandings were, and it just means, we don't believe in another deity, not Zeus, not any other form of deity. But, the verse doesn't have to, Torah doesn't have to reprimand us or to forewarn us, or that we should be so utterly careful, not to believe in other deities. What is the verse coming to tell us? Well, there's nothing distinct and outside of God, ultimately. In other words, from the human condition, we're human beings, and therefore we're going to look at everything through that lens until Torah tells us differently, until the Alter Rebbe teaches us differently. And what's that lens? That God fills the world. And He gives vitality, of course. It'd be foolish to think, that all this is random, all this is meaningless, all this is just happenstance. The precision of everything in the world, how the vitality of everything is so unbelievably precise in all of creation. Just look at the human body. Or just look at a leaf. Imagine that a million times over in a human body. So yeah, God fills the world with His vitality, just as my soul fills my body with vitality. And that's how we would look at it. And therefore, just as my soul fills my body with vitality, and when my soul desires, when I have a desire in my soul, a body doesn't have its own desire on its own, because a body is just a piece of meat. It's a call it a machine, if you will. And it's my soul that has will. So when I will to stretch my hand out, right, to give charity, to stretch my hand, to greet somebody, you're not allowed to greet anybody anymore, I mean, you can greet them, but not, you know what I mean. But so, likewise, God He's in control. Just as my soul is in control of the body and tells my body, hey, move your hand. There's no talk back. My hand moves. God forbid if there's, and then obviously there's some kind of problem. So that's the metaphor that we understand that God is creating the world, right? But in fact, that's a mistake. Why? Because then there's a separation. There's God and world. There's me and God. Yes, God is ultimately in control, but there is a separation. And from this metaphor, for example, body and soul, again, which is such a beautiful metaphor you think about, that God is giving vitality to the world in such a manner. We can relate to it. It makes sense to us. We feel the vitality in our body that our soul gives to us. So we can sense the vitality that God is giving to everything in creation. But the problem with that is, it's only giving vitality, it's not giving existence. The body doesn't get its existence from the soul. It doesn't get the fact of the body, the existence of the body from the soul. It's just an animated body. Otherwise there's no soul, the body's dead. Right? The soul, with its will, it moves my hand. But without it, there's nothing being moved. There's no vitality. But my body still exists. And what makes my body exist? Not my soul. Well, when I was 9 months in gestation and mother's womb, so it's mother. Afterward, it's the food that I eat that gives existence to the body. So there's a separation between body and soul. It's a proof. After 120, after our time here, they separate ways. But that's how we look at the world, because that's how we are. And that's comforting. Why is it comforting? Because we can make sense of it. But that is a huge mistake. God's not giving vitality to this world as the soul gives to the body. How's he doing it? By his word, right? His word. And as his word still stands in the created being at every moment, creating it from nothingness. Not that there was something there to begin with. And we've repeated this idea over and over in different angles. And the reason for that is very simple. Because as the verse says, know this day and bring it to your heart. Know this day, right now. This day, right this moment. And bring it to your heart. Right? And don't make a mistake. Right? That there is no God in the heavens above and the earth way down below. What do you mean no God? No other reality. There is no other. There's no other thing. Why is there no other thing? Because God didn't create, isn't given vitality to the world that there's an existence of something and he's just the force of that something. As my soul is the force of my body, the vitality of my body. No, there was nothing. And through his word that stands within the thing that he's giving vitality to and stands there forever, creating it continuously every instant, therefore creating it anew from nothingness to something. Therefore, in fact, I'm totally within my source and totally nullified to my source as the ray of sun is within the sun. That's the metaphor that we gave. Completely nullified out of existence in relation to the Word of God that is animating me at this very moment and animating all of creation. Again, just as the light of the sun is nullified in the sun. I don't feel this. That's only because of the restraining power of God, Shem Elokim, that hides the attribute of Gvura, Tzimtzum, Gvura, the power of self-restraint, that gives me, in my own eyes, the sense of independence, selfhood, sovereignty over self, right? Because that's being concealed, that truth. But that is only a truth from our perspective. From God's perspective, Hashem hu Elokim, Havaya hu Elokim. Havaya, the power of God that is creating me something from nothing every moment, and the power of concealment are one and the same force. No distinction, no separation. It's not like two forces of God. It's one. And it's hard to exactly imagine that because in us we have, we're a compound of different powers and forces. But by God, they're one and the same thing, a perfect unity. By us, it's not a perfect unity. So therefore, God's not hiding from himself. It is that oneness of God. That's the end of chapter 6. Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? I know now that. I'm giving a moment. I just have to get something from the printer to help me further. Okay. Anna, attempting to connect the dots. Limud. I didn't catch that. Terminology to see the big picture. I'm thinking to connect that tzaddikim are the connection between us here and the Shekhinah, which is the vessel. So the tzaddikim's job, aim, here is to connect. I'm not clear. But then the tzaddikim's vessels, unlike ours, not concealed as ours. More questions, I think. I'm not clear, Anna, of the question. Rav, which comes first, kingdom? We'll get there shortly. Okay, Anna, I'm sorry, I'm not clear on the question. Anybody else? Batya, Marcy, Tim, Karen, Eliana. Marcy, please share.
This doesn't feel vastly different than what we've already been learning.
Yeah.
It feels like a restatement of the same thing, I guess just from a slightly different perspective.
Right. You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that for two reasons. One is that means you're really paying attention. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. That you're really paying attention. That's amazing in itself. And I gotta say that although there is some kind of repetitiveness, and I mentioned part of the reason for that repetitiveness is because, as the verse says, Hadaita, right? Such a strong warning to us. It's such a strong warning to us. Why such a strong warning? Is because that strong warning is our nature is so different, and therefore we need to be warned, and therefore it's being brought from different angles, and that's one thing. Second thing is, I think in the last class I overstepped and said some of the things that I mentioned today. So I probably explained too much in the previous class, and sometimes I do that. And it was in this class that brought it out in its fullness. So both things are, I think, true. But yes, it's being repeated in different angles to give us a clarity on the issue, because again, this is something that naturally we are inclined to feel differently. But thank you for being such an observant Jew. Okay, Tim.
Yes, hello, Rabbi Ronnie Fine.
Yes, Tim.
Good to speak with you on this platform.
Yes.
In saying what we learned today, it seems. I mean, I know this has been said that the essence of that gives everything vitality is Elohim and Havaya.
Yes.
And the take home to me, which I still need to wrap my mind around this, and even more so because of this lesson today, is that again, we're components, but not with the divine. So that's the processing problem that I believe we have, is that these two, I mean, elements is probably not the correct word to use, but these attributes of the divine, Elohim and Havaya, they're not separate. They're one,
Right, right. We
So
give two different names to it because from our perspective, we cannot truly understand and experience total oneness as a simplistic whole oneness. We see things in a binary way that we spoke about in the previous class, that we see things in duality because that's the the human condition that God creates. So we have to speak in those terms, even though ultimately that's why I said Havaya Hu Elohim, that that they're one and the same. It's not two different powers within the realm of God. It's God. We perceive it that way, and therefore we have to speak about it that way, and we try to understand it as best as we can in the terms that, in our human terminology. Ultimately, is that
that's
clarify?
yeah. I mean that's profound. I just obviously I need some more time to make that real within in my thinking, and have that real for me and us in our lives. Is
Right.
that although what we're perceiving it seems real to us, but from God's perspective, it's all Him.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we need to bring that down to make that our perspective.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Odi, I know now that God gives all energy in the world. Even thought sometimes it um, doesn't feel possible to me because of things that happened. So it's good. That okay, excellent. Um, so Rav, we're going to deal with your question shortly. Um, and I didn't get Deborah. I didn't see a question. Andrew says, I know now that God built real barriers to know Him. We could not, but our alleged belief is not knowing Him in our perspective that can change the study of Torah. Charity, to get by the concealment, get Torah clarity. I think that's what you meant. To get by the concealment, what that God does wish for us to reveal. Yes, very good. Okay. So Rav, your question soon we're going to get to, and okay. Marla, does God give vitality to our own souls? Of course, God gives vitality to our own souls. Absolutely. Um, um, absolutely. If He gives existence, and for sure He's giving vitality. Remember, our soul gives vitality to our body, but doesn't give existence to it. Food and drink right now gives existence in my body. If I don't eat and drink, my body will not exist. So food and drink is doing that. The soul is giving the vitality, that meaning I could, use my arms, use my eyes, right? That's the soul that's doing that. So God is giving existence and vitality, both things. Yes. Okay.